Okay, now we're live. Hello. Anybody see me? Kelly, can you see it? It said live and then it... You seeing it? You do? Oh, great. All right, so we are live. Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Sorry about the late start, having just a few minor technical issues, as you might imagine, from trying to stream video from the redwood forest, from the mountain here. I'm here. My name is Alex. Hi, how's it going? I would like to encourage anybody who's joining us live or watching this later to go ahead and post in the comments if you'd like to introduce yourself, participate in the chat. If you'll feel comfortable, even sharing where you are, so we know, where people are streaming in from and everything. I personally am coming in here at Castle Rock State Park in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California. We are actually on we are on the ancestral land of the Ohlone people and the Achistaka tribe, specifically closest nearby here. We're more in kind of an area, a part of a system of trails and networks that actually was a trading route for them. So if you want to find us, we are in right between what's modern day San Jose and Santa Cruz, California. So if you want to hop on Google Maps or whatever kind of map service you use, check it out, get an idea for where we're at. We are Castle Rock State Park technically in Los Gatos, California. We're not really in Los Gatos, but that is the closest city. That's our address, so that'll help you find us as opposed to other Castle Rocks, because it's kind of a common name. Now, a quick little bit about me, just so you know who I am. If you maybe missed last week's video, we're going to be doing these roughly weekly, for the foreseeable future, to try to get the park out to people who are maybe not so much able to leave home and get out to different parks. So we definitely understand that. Speaking of that, before I introduce myself a little bit more, I want to make sure that everybody's aware this isn't really the best place right here, this video, to get information about COVID-19 and closure and everything. We'll give you a quick update. As of right now, vehicle access has been closed to all 280 state parks. A lot of them, historic parks, visitor centers, museums, that kind of thing, have already been closed down. If you want to check out, get up to the minute, information, you can definitely follow, different parks' social media platforms. That's a great way to go. And we post a lot of updates throughout this. But we also have a website, an official parks website, www.parks.ca.gov/flatten the curve, all one word. www.parks.ca.gov/flatten the curve, and I'll try to leave that in the comments as well, so you can follow that. So that's where to get the information, up-to-date updates about how state parks is reacting to this evolving situation. So enough of that. Let's talk about the park a little bit. Now, in a second, I'm going to show you where we are, get a little perspective, but I should probably give you a little perspective on who I am. Again, my name is Alex, and I work here for California State Parks in Santa Cruz County. So I work at a lot of different parks. My main park is a little park called the Castro Adobe State Historic Park down in Watsonville. We haven't finished remodeling the Adobe and turning it into a museum yet, but we're getting there. But I've helped out, I've worked at all different kinds of parks. I'm part of the California State Parks backpacking program, or CASBA, that happens in the Santa Cruz Mountains here. So I'm lucky to get around different parks, and really lucky to be able to get out right now as an essential employee, maintaining social distancing and all that, of course, to kind of stream a little bit of the park into your home. So thank you so much for joining us now, live or watching later. Much appreciated. Okay, now, once again, we are in Castle Rock State Park. So I'm actually in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I'm actually standing basically on the mountainside right now. So I'm going to get behind the camera real quick, and give you a little bit of perspective. And again, if you'd like to figure out, get a better idea of where we are at right now, highly recommend maybe, if you're online in a browser, opening up a window with Google Maps, if you're allowed to, if that's all good. I know we've got hopefully a number of students watching, but if that's all right, I would highly recommend checking out Castle Rock State Park. We're the one in Los Gatos, California. All right, let me get behind the camera and show you around a little bit. So let's start by, okay, and let's flip the camera around a little bit. Okay, so, oh, and I see we've got some folks joined up. Hi Meg, hi Ryan, how you guys doing? Okay, now you can see here, I'm pointing this up the mountainside. In fact, if you went up that way, I don't know if you can tell the trail, there's a little used trail, and the official trail is up there. And if you follow that for a couple hundred yards, that is going to get back up to Castle Rock State Park, the Castle Rock. So we're in the state park right now, but the rock, the big rock, climbing rock that it's named after, is a few hundred yards up that way. But there's a few folks climbing over there, and plus I wanted to show some other stuff that we got down here specifically. Now, if I point down here, okay, you can see, boom, heads pretty quickly down the mountain. Got nice rock here. Now, I don't know if anybody who was watching last time remembers what kind of rock this is. We had a video that was mostly focused on geology, plate tectonics last week. I would highly recommend you check it out. If anybody watching was watching last time, or just happens to know, feel free, post it in the comments, and you can look smart to everybody else. And here is one of those little holes, little caves, or we call them. So that might be a clue there, what kind of rocks have Tefoni. And, ooh, as long as we're guessing, we've got some trees right here, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But if anybody wants to wager a guess, or if they know already what kind of tree that is. Ooh, let's see, it looks like Mushtaba. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but you are correct. It is sandstone. And you can tell, zoom in on the cave a little bit, you can tell it's a little sandier and softer in there as part of years and years and years and years of essentially erosion, causing the calcium carbonate to come to the surface. That's why it's a little harder on the top, softer in the middle. But that's last week. If you want to check out last week, so you can check that out on our page. But good job, Mujtaba. You are exactly correct. It is sandstone. Okay, and that probably illustrates a little bit of a point I should point out, is I do have a little bit of a lag going on right here. In my previous videos, 10 to 15 seconds or so. So if you type something, don't expect me to get it before then. But I'm going to stop regularly. So go ahead and just, when you think of a question, type it in, and I'll try to get to it as quick as I can. Okay, so this I'm looking at here is a big Douglas fir tree. Okay, so different than the ones I just showed. And then, yeah, so there's my tripod and my stuff, but going on up the hill. So you can see I'm kind of perched right now on the side of the mountain, which that would be a good place to talk about a couple of things relating to our ongoing theme of the only constant here at Castle Rock is change. So I talked about some of those big changes in last week's video, plate tectonics and geology causing the uplift which created these mountains, which 15 million years ago were underwater. This was, sea floor. And then slowly, as those processes, take hold, rising up. So it was beach for a while. After that, it started to lift, but was still much lower. And eventually has turned into these sort of teenager mountains, if you will. The highest point's only about 3,800 feet. I think even a little bit less. So at Mount Loma Prieta. So not talking about super old mountains, but still in a state of change. Now, eventually, the forests would move in, and that would be as a result, as I mentioned last time, of natural climate change. Now, you can't really talk about change and the parks today without talking about climate change. In this case, you're seeing a lot of natural climate change. Millions and millions of years ago, before there were people, let alone industrial development. You're not talking about, of course, man-made or exacerbated, by man and human activities. You're talking about natural climate change. In this case, the Earth slowly getting cooler, and those that ideal zone for redwoods getting smaller and smaller. In fact, 100 million years ago, there were over a dozen different kinds of redwoods, and you can find them over 5 continents. Today, not so much. Today, it's 2 continents and just tiny little patches on the. And there are only 3 species of redwoods left. That would be the coast redwood, which we do have here in the park, although it's not the best area. Further down the mountain a little bit is typically better. This is a little bit high altitude for them. We do have a few redwoods in the park, but we don't have those really big, massive, tall ones. But the coast redwood is one of the kinds. Those get to be the tallest trees or living things on Earth. The giant sequoias get to be the biggest trees in terms of mass volume. And then the dawn redwood, which actually was thought to be extinct, but until around World War II, reports were coming out of China, tiny little county in Hubei province. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, people of Hubei. But found there and sent out to some UC Berkeley professors to confirm it was in fact the dawn redwood, the Metasequoia glyptostroboides. I think I mispronounced that even worse. But the dawn redwood, and so that's just naturally still growing tiny little part of. Since World War II, there's been a lot replanting, but natural climate change shrunk it to those tiny little, like I mentioned, that pot in Little China, and for the coast redwoods, a little strip along the west coast here of North America, and for the giant sequoia, really just the Sierra Nevadas. In fact, really just this side, the west side of the Sierra Nevadas. So really tiny little ranges that are still left as cooling happens. There's less evaporation and fog. Redwoods need a lot of fog, and so you see them slowly, kind of in the fossil record, going to these ideal ranges, which still currently exist today, that are though being threatened by man-exacerbated climate change. So you have the forest changing, and really even starting even before really the mountains, Santa Cruz Mountains here, are starting to form. 100 million years ago, we're seeing that change with the redwoods. 15 million years ago is when this place really started to, the mountains started to form. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the scale of time that we're talking about. And through all that time, through all those many millions of years, change truly is, the only constant. I'm seeing some action in the comments section here. Let's see. Nope, very good. Okay, so we don't have any questions. Again, please feel free to leave any in the comment section. As they come to you, I'm going to stop a few times regularly to get any questions from there, and then I'll make sure there's a few minutes at the end dedicated specifically to questions and answers. Very good. Now, why am I talking about the redwoods? Well, they definitely give us an opportunity to discuss climate change and other forces, affecting the wildlife here at the park. But as I mentioned before, we don't have here. Maybe for a future video, if I can find a good spot with some cell service near some of our redwoods, definitely will. But that's not really what Castle Rock State Park is known for. We are more mixed hardwood forest. And so when you have a mixed forest, you tend to get some of these trees, at least here in coastal California, you tend to get trees like these behind me. I didn't see anybody make a guess. Last chance here. If anybody has a guess what kind of tree that is, and what we can do is we can even get up a little bit closer, take a closer look, if you will. Let's do that. Okay, now I'm gonna just hop up onto this big old sandstone rock real quick. Okay. And okay. Oh, wow, great guess, random person at home who's not helping me with this video at all. Yes, Kelly, this is the madrone tree. Thanks for the help. Now, madrone trees are very cool trees. They grow, like I said, largely at the edge of what we call mixed hardwood forest. So if I point the camera over here, seeing Doug firs, we're seeing multiple oaks, live canyon, 10 oaks probably somewhere. I'm not seeing them right here, but you're getting a good mix. Now, as we continue down the hill, especially, redwoods become part of that mix, and then when we get more fully down the hill, it becomes, you know, more truly redwood forest. Now, these madrone, which are also themselves hardwood, tend to grow at the edges of those kinds of areas. So right up here on the ridge, where it is, you know, certainly you could define it as the edge of the mixed hardwood forest, but isn't really sandhill or chaparral, that really sunny, high drainage soil, you know, ridge line kind of areas. Those chaparral and sandhill areas, don't typically have madrone. They have the cousin of the madrone, the manzanita, which is very similar, closely related, but is essentially the shrub version of the madrone. But it has very similar kind of skin and bark and the paper that comes on the bark. Now, some of you folks might be aware of one of its nicknames, which is the refrigerator tree. So I'm going to touch the tree right here, and you're going to kind of vicariously imagine what it might be like. It is easily 10 degrees colder than the ambient temperature around here, which is even more noticeable on a hot day when you've been hiking. The reason for that is that madrone trees, so all trees really have essentially veins. Okay, so if you look at your body, look at your arm or your neck, and find a good vein. I got some good ones here. Maybe some of those are tendons, but everybody's got veins, right? And in our case, it's got blood, right? And that blood has oxygen in it, and those veins are transporting that blood and all the good oxygen around to all the organs, keeping them alive. The tree doesn't really have organs in the same way that we do, but it does have veins, essentially, to bring water, nutrients, right, which is mainly sugar. That's what sap is, transporting that all through the tree. And it has kinds of these, quote-unquote veins called xylem and phloem. Okay. Now, the xylem and phloem are both basically the veins, but they go in different directions. The xylem goes up the tree from the ground up, and the phloem goes from the leaves and the canopy down. The xylem typically is pulling that water from the roots out of the ground, and the phloem mostly the nutrients, the sugar, the sap that is created by photosynthesis from the leaves in the canopy, and then the phloem sends that down. The way I remember which way they go, it's fun. It's a little saying. The phloem flows down. I learned that from Ranger Taboni out here. So the phloem flows down, which helps me remember which way to go. So the xylem goes up. So that can help you remember. And the reason I'm talking about this is because the madrone trees have that xylem and phloem really close to the surface of their skin. And so that's you're literally touching like the water that's flowing through the tree. And so a lot of people like to, on a hot, sweaty day hiking around here, like to give these trees a big old hug, cool off real quick. So I want to show you one of the things. So this is why I called the video redder than the redwoods. You get this really reddish, sometimes vividly red skin. The paper on the bark even more so. You'll notice the bark really peeling, and there's in fact, let me see if I can get a view without falling off the cliff here. You'll notice not only is there the thicker bark, but it's got kind of papery bits that are growing under the bark that are kind of peeling off. And I see Samuel is just asking this question. Excellent. Very good. So we're on the same page, Samuel. The tree, these trees lose quite a bit of bark. It's very tiny little pieces there, and so it comes off. And in fact, in the late summer, like around August, up until August or so, you see the bark peeling off in great pieces, and it's just very thin. The tree is incredibly adaptive, and so its bark isn't so much a part of that. The tree is actually, you'll notice this tree is growing in all kinds of different directions, as opposed to our friend the Douglas fir. It's much like a redwood. You see that one just going straight up and down. And then over here, you've got lots of branches going off in different directions. And this is all one tree, but you see a big major junction there. You see lots of lost branches there. So this is all part of the tree's adaptations. This is a very impressive tree. The madrone tree is known to grow into patches of sunlight and to adjust its growth. And so that's why you can get madrone trees growing in just such crazy and twisted different directions. More than that, they're known to allow branches to die, to help the rest of the tree. Got a little bit of that going on right here. Those branches there below, not getting enough sunlight. The tree is letting it die very close to that junction with the main branch there, as a survival mechanism. That is almost certainly what's happened right here much longer ago. That has fully broken off. And as you can tell right here, not the sunniest of spots anymore. So this is an incredible, really helpful adaptation, especially for trees that grow. So madrone trees, this is a very tall one. This is a very tall one, particularly large. Madrone trees don't get much taller than this, a little over 100 feet or so tops. So when you're talking about growing amongst Douglas firs, who can get almost 300 feet, redwood trees can get well over 300 feet, you need a different adaptation than just growing up very quickly and straightly. So that's what the madrone tree has done, is it's developed an ability, like the bay tree. California bay tree is able to do this as well, but yeah, to grow, to change the direction of their growth, to adapt to changing sunlight conditions, and to drop branches, sacrifice branches essentially in service of the rest of the tree. It's very adaptive, but the bark is just incredibly thin, and so it peels off quite easily, especially once it starts to get warmer, after it begins drying. Now the tree is very useful. Oh, let me show a couple of things before I put this back on the tripod. Couple of things. So here is a little zoom in close. So this is, whoop, there we go. This is a madrone leaf. So it's kind of green and glossy. This one fell off the tree very recently. Just starting to kind of decompose. And this is a piece of the paper. So this is right between the bark and the skin. If you look on the tree, the skin is the lightest red part. There's a paper that's a little bit darker, and then the bark is almost purplish. So that is the reddish paper in between, and the leaves there. And madrone also makes berries as well. It's a very, very useful tree, impressive tree, and this is something just jumped. I'm okay. This is something that did not escape the notice of California Indian people over thousands of years, including the Ohlone people and the Atchistaka tribe that was closest here to what's now Castle Rock State Park. There are lots of uses, so that I'm going to bookend it. You should never harvest anything. So 100 it is. And you should never harvest anything in the wilderness that you don't have permission from whoever owns the land. And you should never do it at a state park because it's illegal, but also that would damage the resource we're trying to protect and make there less stuff, to see for future visitors who come in. Never do this in any park or anything, but the California Indians knew how to make use of the madrone tree. So that paper that I showed you makes tea that they would use to treat a couple different things, mainly gastrointestinal, help with digestion. It's got a very high tannin content, like the bark and leaves of the redwood tree that also grow in the area here. So that activity, too much of it can actually make you sick, but actually really help with digestion. So they would use it to treat that kind of thing. And the berries aren't the sweetest. I've heard people, today talking about making preserves. It's a good one. You sweeten it up a little bit, and you can save it for a long time. The traditional Ohlone uses included making like necklaces and decorations as fish bait for their fish. So very useful tree, and it clearly impressed certain California tribal groups at least its ability to adapt its growth and to follow the sun. Essentially, in fact, the madrone tree features heavily in a number of different tribal groups on the West Coast. Since one is the Salish Nation, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that one as well, but present-day Seattle, British Columbia, Vancouver area into Canada, the Salish First Nation peoples. Part of their, most cultures has some kind of flood story, and this, features into theirs. When they were faced, with a flood, they used the Tree of Wisdom. They believed that the madrone tree anchored, and brought together with its the many shattered pieces of the world together, anchored them together. And so when the floods came, tied their boats, their canoes, anchored them to these madrone trees, so the flood and not get swept away from their home. And that follows really, I'm not going to get too much, this isn't world religion. Interestingly, is a common theme in a lot of major religions worldwide. Trees and the of knowledge or wisdom. You've got Adam and Eve in both the Bible and the Quran, slightly different accounts, but same tree of knowledge. You've got Moses seeing God as a burning bush. Australian Aboriginal beliefs, thing called Jang. Again, hope I'm not mispronouncing that too bad. Spiritual power that collects in sacred places and especially trees. So that idea of trees being a symbol of wisdom, of kind of imparting some of that power to the people is a really common theme in a lot of cultures. And so, at least the Salish people of British Columbia, a little bit up the coast from here, but they esteemed it as such, and so it's likely that other groups here as well did. When you're using it to kind of self, that can be very kind of powerful. So this is so that's what I wanted to point out, because these trees, a lot of people who've maybe never seen them, never been to the redwood forest, come hike here or something at Castle Rock. They see these trees a lot of times, and they'll say, "Oh, those are the redwoods," because by comparison, they do get quite a bit redder than the redwoods themselves. So the redwoods, the redwood part, where you really kind of into it to see the red part, it's the heartwood itself, whereas the madrone kind of carries its red everywhere. The bark, the paper underneath the bark, the skin when first exposed is usually more greenish. This one behind me has been exposed for a while, clearly, and so it's turned more red. The berries are a deep red, and but when they fall into the ground, they turn slowly turn a reddish brown as they. So really, I think they're even redder than the redwoods, and so of a close-up, a highlight, so to speak, for today's virtual field trip. Okay, now I've just talked a lot. Do we have any questions about the madrone trees? I'm not seeing. There's a little bit of a lag. Okay, not seeing any questions. That's okay. Little bit of a smaller group today. That's all right. Hopefully, more folks will be looking for this video later. So I'd highly encourage everybody to share this around to anybody you think is interested. Okay, very good. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I am just about out of time. I will be doing this again at little bit different. We'll be talking about a little more stuff. This one is in our virtual field trip. This next one will be a little more general public, hopefully question focus, a little free form. So if you're interested, please come on, and same place right here from 11:30 to 12 o'clock. Thank you very much. I've been Alex out here at California State Parks at Castle Rock State Park in Santa Cruz Mountains. And everybody, I hope you're doing okay. I hope this is giving you something to check out, to see, and I hope you can get out here when all this whole situation's over. Till then, stay healthy, stay happy, and thanks again for joining me.